We're diving into a story today that sits right at the intersection of love, law, and the heartbreaking reality of memory loss. And it forces us to ask a question that is, well, both deeply personal and incredibly complex from a legal standpoint.
So just imagine for a second, the person you've built your entire life with starts to forget who you are. They have to move into a nursing home, and suddenly all the assets you both agreed very clearly to keep separate, well, they become the center of a huge fight. At what point does the law step in and say, you know what, this relationship is over?
Now, this isn't just some thought experiment. This exact scenario played out in a real-life drama that climbed all the way to the highest court in Australia. The case, Fairbairn versus Radecki. It basically forced the country's top judges to define the very essence of a relationship when one person can no longer speak for themselves.
To really get why the court made the decision it did, we have to rewind. We've got to go back to the very beginning, to the foundation, you could almost call it the constitution, that this couple built for their partnership.
Okay, so let's meet our couple, Miss Fairbairn and Mr. Radecki. They got together around 2005. They were in what's called a de facto relationship, and they lived in a home that was owned completely by Miss Fairbairn. And by all accounts, they had a really practical, supportive partnership. But it was built on one very specific, absolutely non-negotiable rule.
And look, this wasn't just some casual chat they had. This rule was the absolute bedrock of their entire union. They actually formalized it legally, not once, but twice. Her property was hers, his assets were his, period. As the very first judge on this case pointed out, this idea was a core element of their relationship from the day it started to the day it ended.
But then, of course, life threw a tragic curveball. Ms. Fairbairn's health started to decline, and fast. The diagnosis was dementia, and that meant her ability to make decisions, to think clearly, to even protect herself. It was all just fading away. And this put their relationship and that core agreement of theirs to the ultimate test.
So as Mrs. Fairbairn became more and more vulnerable, the story really starts to shift. We begin to see a series of actions taken by Mr. Radecki, and they raise some pretty serious questions. You have to wonder, was he trying to protect her, or was he trying to protect himself?
Let's just walk through this timeline, because every single step is crucial. By 2017, Ms. Fairbairn has pretty much lost all ability to make decisions for herself. That July, what does Mr. Radecki do? He gets her power of attorney changed, giving himself total control of her finances. A few months later, he arranges a new will for her that gives him the right to live in her house for the rest of his life. I mean, that's a huge change. These actions were so alarming that a court had to step in and appoint an independent trustee. But when that trustee said, okay, we need to sell the house to pay for her care, Mr. Radecki said no. The battle lines were officially drawn.
So the trustee takes him to court to try and force the sale. But here's the legal catch, the little twist that sends this case rocketing up to the highest level. You see, under Australian family law, a court can only divide up property if the relationship has officially broken down. So suddenly, the entire case, everything, hinged on one single question: were they actually still together?
What happened next was, honestly, a masterclass in legal whiplash. You had two different courts look at the exact same set of facts, the very same actions by Mr. Radecki, and they came to completely 100% opposite conclusions. Okay, so the first court, the trial court, said, yep, the relationship is over. And their reasoning? His actions, taking control of her finances, were a complete and total betrayal of their separate assets agreement. It just wasn't compatible with the relationship they had built. But then Mr. Radecki appealed, and the appeal court said, no, the relationship is not over. They basically called his actions bad behavior and noted that bad behavior is, and I'm quoting here, not unheard of in a relationship. So, which is it? Is it a betrayal that ends everything, or just a really rough patch?
And so, the case landed in the High Court of Australia. You've got the 7 most senior judges in the entire country, and now they have to set the ultimate standard. They have to decide what it means for a relationship to end when one person's voice has been completely silenced by illness.
So, first things first, the court threw out any simple black and white rule. They said that just because someone has to move into a nursing home, that doesn't automatically mean the relationship is kaput. They got that modern relationships are complicated, right? People live apart for work, for health, for all sorts of reasons, and they still share a life together. The legal test had to be about way more than just a physical address.
So if where you live isn't the test, what is? Well, the court came up with a much more profound, kind of beautiful standard. They asked, in a continuing relationship, when one partner's situation changes dramatically, what would you expect? You'd expect the other partner to make necessary or desirable adjustments to support them, to keep their shared life going. This idea, these adjustments, that became the new measuring stick.
And this, right here, became the billion-dollar question. When Ms. Fairbairn desperately needed money for her care, were Mr. Radecki's actions the necessary adjustments of a loving, supportive partner? Did his behavior show a real commitment to their shared life, to putting her well-being first?
The court looked at the evidence and concluded he had done the exact opposite. Instead of making supportive adjustments for her, he acted for himself. He seized control of her money and was even officially declared unsuitable to manage her finances. He was pushing plans that would drain her savings just so he could keep living in her house for free. He was, in short, totally uncooperative. These were not the actions of a partner.
So here's the bottom line. The High Court ruled that the relationship was, in fact, broken. And not because she moved into a nursing home. It was broken because his actions proved that the mutual commitment to a shared life, and especially that core promise to keep their finances separate, had been completely abandoned. The trust was shattered, and with it, the relationship itself.
So what can the rest of us take away from this? Because this case, it's not just some fascinating legal story. It offers some really profound, really practical lessons for all of our relationships.
Okay, lesson 1. Actions, not addresses, define a real partnership. It's about what you do for each other. 2. Write it down. That financial agreement was the constitution that gave the court a clear way to judge his actions. 3. Character is revealed in a crisis. How you behave when your partner is at their most vulnerable, well, that becomes the ultimate legal evidence. 4. There's a massive difference between bad behavior and an act of betrayal that just demolishes a relationship's core promises. And finally, number 5. The law is designed to step in and protect those who can't protect themselves, even from the people they're closest to.
And that really leaves us with one last pretty provocative thought. Every single relationship has a constitution, a set of rules of core agreements, whether you've said them out loud or not. This case just shows how powerful it is to make those agreements crystal clear. So it's worth asking yourself, what's your relationship's constitution? And is it strong enough to survive a crisis?